All right. I believe I'm live. Oh, you got to turn that volume down. Hello. Hello, YouTube. Is there anybody out there? Welcome to the live chat. Learn more. I'm going to start by putting a couple questions. Let me see. I believe we do have a couple people who have joined. Welcome. I'm going to give this a little more time to see if we can get a couple more people who are joining. This is Tim Shepard. I'm going to put a couple questions in the chat just to kind of kick things off. And if you have any questions of your own, feel free to throw them out there. So where are you joining? I'm going to put a question out here. Where are you located? So hopefully you see that. You don't need to be specific. You can put your state. What is your favorite perennial? All right. So I think we have a total of 5 people. Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm putting some questions out there. Let me see. What is your favorite perennial? Are you ready for spring? And I think what I'm going to do here, I might do this kind of backwards since this is very new and I'm waiting for people to join. Can you adjust camera down? There you go. This way you can see all of me. Again, this is Tim Shepard for those of you who have joined. I think we have a total of 7 people who have joined now, which is super exciting for me. Thank you so much for joining. This is my very first live stream. Again, I'm Tim Shepard. I've put some questions in the chat. Again, my hopes is that this becomes a Q&A so I can answer your questions and get to know you. I'm just kind of throwing some questions out there to get things started. But if you have a question you would like answered, either about regenerative practices, about landscaping, about plants, perennials, anything like that, go ahead and ask. And while I'm waiting, I think I might just start sharing some pictures of my recent trip. I don't know if anybody had a chance to watch my video. Let me see here. The video I put out yesterday, actually, hold on. Bear with me one moment here. I'm going to slide. I think this might be a fun way to get things started. Hopefully, all right, hopefully you can see my screen. Hopefully you can see the live stream. This is interesting. I'm realizing it's going to be tricky kind of getting a little bit of feedback. But what I'm going to do is I am going to share pictures of my trip to Longwood Gardens yesterday. I thought this would be super fun to go through on a mission to look for native plants. So this is the first picture I have to share. And it was interesting. I really didn't have to go far. This is actually a picture I took in the parking lot. And it's a picture with all the leaves still on it, which I thought was just beautiful. And you can see with the evergreens below it, it really pops. This is a picture of a white oak, which is native. You don't see a lot of these in the development. You won't see a lot of these in the development or kind of in residential settings. And the reason for that is that they're slow growers and they actually get very, very large. I have another picture here where I kind of did a close-up, but they are very flexible. They grow in a lot of different conditions. So I noticed a lot of them kind of as I made my way through Longwood. So that was the first picture I had to share. Now the second picture, I did have to do a slight adjustment to this in Photoshop because there were some people kind of standing in the middle, but I think I did a good job here. So this is a picture of a very long kind of pathway. And as you go down the path on the left and right, you can see, I don't know if you'll be able to see my mouse, but you can see some red twig dogwood shrubs that are growing. So this is the first picture. This is kind of the from a little bit of a distance. But as you zoom in, again, this is great use of a native, the red twig dogwood, because you can see it's in front of the evergreen shrubs behind it. So they really do pop and they really do stand out. So I love the red twig dogwoods. And then here's one last picture, kind of zooming in. Oh, hold on. I'm being told you cannot see the pictures. Hold on. I have to do it like this. How about this? Hold on. Crud. Okay, here we go. All right, I think this is working. All right, I'm sorry. Here we go. Quick question. What do you do to spring up back? Okay, so thank you for the questions. I see some questions come in. Thank you so much for joining. This is exciting. That's it. We can't see the picture. Now you can see the pictures. Yes, I apologize for the delay. So I'm going to just start over. Again, I mentioned the white oak, which again still has its leaves. So this is the first picture, kind of from a distance, and then here is the picture a little bit closer. So again, just beautiful, great start. And then I started saying this is the third picture here. So this is a red twig dogwood, or again, this is a path with a red twig dogwood. And then I kind of zoom in here, and you can see again with the backdrop, it really pops. And then here's even a closer picture. So again, there's a lot of different species out there, but again, great red color to this, which is beautiful. Now the next picture, kind of as I walk down to the end of that path, and you look to the right, you can see here a lot of different plantings. And then kind of to the rightmost area, you can see these yellow sticks really pop. This is a yellow twig dogwood, which will actually get a little bigger. It's kind of hard to tell from the picture, but they're a little bit taller here. And then as I go to the next picture, hold on, I'm just making sure you can see the pictures. Sorry, I'm just getting a message to make sure. Okay. So here's a picture of the yellow twig dogwood. This is on the left side of the path. You can see it really pops, especially if there's any kind of foliage behind it. And then with the leaves at the bottom. So great shrub here. And please, as I go through these pictures, please continue to ask questions. I really do appreciate it. I think the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to run through these pictures first. That way there's plenty of questions out there. And then I'm going to go through and answer a lot of these questions. So thank you for joining. Thank you for asking the questions. This next picture here is as I continue down the path, you can see both sides are surrounded here. And there's actually three things I want to point out in this picture I thought was great. To the left-hand side, you can see a sweet pepper bush. And then to the right-hand side is Virginia sweet spire. And then it's really hard to see here. I'm going to zoom in in a couple of pictures here. But down at the bottom, this is a picture of coral bells. That green down at the bottom left is growing. So a little bit of coral bells has kind of popped up in this area. So let me zoom in. So if I look a little closer at the left-hand side, sweet pepper bush, which is great, has a spring flower, dark green foliage. Looks really beautiful here. And again, when it blooms and it has the foliage, so it's a great plant for year-round native interest. And then on the right side, again, Virginia sweet spire. So if you have a part shade area, again, both of these plants are going to do fine and be very happy. And then here's a picture of those coral bells. When I get a little closer here, so it's great to see again. All these pictures I'm showing you were taken yesterday on February 9th. So it's great to see that if you are looking for winter interest, coral bells, there's a lot of different varieties. I have some pictures in here later of a different variety which has a purple leaf. So all great options to choose from. Okay. So next, sweet bay magnolia is another great native, especially as you move further down south. So here's a close-up picture of the leaves. And then I have another picture just kind of showing how tall sweet bay magnolia can get. I do consider this to be a slow grower, but this easily can reach, up to 100 feet. So you can see another great plant if you're looking for some interest in the winter. And then again, some great pictures or great flowers, I should say, you get as well. Hi, Gretchen. Thank you for joining. John, thank you also for joining. Next here is the bald cypress. Again, now this is not, a lot of these that I go over, they are native, but they're not necessarily something that you're going to plant at your home. But again, I still like to share them because I just think these are beautiful, beautiful plants and bushes here. So this is the bald cypress, and I'm kind of illustrating here the the knees, if you will. That's what they kind of call these that are popping up here. So anytime this is planted around water, it'll have these knees that'll grow. So it's how it gets oxygen. And it's just really interesting. Again, anytime you're at Longwood, I put in some pictures of the great structures that they have. It really adds. It almost looks like a little gnome house to me. So I thought this was a great little spot here with a picture of the bald cypress. Next here, rhododendron. They had a lot of azaleas. I didn't really take pictures of the azaleas. A lot of those don't have leaves. It's a little early, but the rhododendron, I wanted to make sure they're scattered throughout the woodland area, which is mainly where I was at yesterday. So it's one picture of the rhododendron. Here's another kind of close-up picture. You can see nice big leaves, nice green color. So if you have a shady spot, a lot of the rhododendrons, like Rhododendron maximus, really can get quite large and can fill in a space. And then here you can see already has a bud ready for that early spring bloom, which is great. Now the next picture. Now this is the one picture I was really on a mission to not include natives, or to only include natives and to make sure there were not use of any non-natives. So here's a Lenten rose. This is a one non-native I will use in my plantings when I do landscaping. It really is a slow grower. It does not spread out of control or quickly. And what's great about it, it's interesting in this picture, you don't see any that are in bloom, which is interesting because at my home, it actually blooms in mid to late January into February. So they are blooming now. Now, in another spot at Longwood Gardens, I was able to find some Lenten rose, which is interesting that this one's in bloom, but there are not a lot of leaves. But this just kind of gives you an indication. The flower, there's a lot of different varieties, a lot of different colors. So this is more the maroon red leaf, as you can see here. The ones I have at home, I prefer the white. Again, just preference. But again, this is the one non-native in here. So I'll move from the non-natives. Next, I have a series of pictures of hydrangeas. I know everybody loves them in the spring when they're blooming, but I think they are just as beautiful in the winter. You can see that all these seed heads that remain. My pictures do not do this justice, but it's surrounded by ferns down here at the bottom. So it's just another, you can see the darker color of the ferns at the bottom. So the combination of the dark brown, almost reddish ferns combined with the white hydrangea seed heads, I think really pops and really looks beautiful. Here's kind of just another picture, which is great. As I go here. Oh, here, I thought this was a really great picture. Again, the combination of the red twig dogwood and the seed heads from hydrangea. Again, the red, white, and then with the water in the background. I thought this just really pops. John, I see your comment there. You have a couple black-eyed Susans. They really light up the yard. And you're right, black-eyed Susans are great. They have a very long bloom. And they're great if you are trying to cover the ground. As they seed, they will spread and fill in there. So I think black-eyed Susans are beautiful as well. Here's another picture of the hydrangea and the red twig, kind of showing it from a lower view from the ground. I really like these pictures. I was trying to capture some of the leaf litter that's on the ground. I think it's easy to dismiss the leaf litter, but again, contrasting textures, contrasting colors, when you put it all together, again, I think this was kind of magical, kind of the way you're looking through the foliage and you can kind of see the space in the background. I thought was a very, very beautiful picture. Next, this is just a picture of one of the structures at Longwood Gardens. If you're ever able to do something like this at home, it really can enhance the area. I know it's not realistic for all of us, but I thought this was great to share, and I share a couple of the other ones. Now, this is just a picture of the lake. Yesterday, if anybody was able to get outside, again, I'm not sure where everybody's located, but here in Southeast Pennsylvania, it was a beautiful day. It was beautiful to be outside. You can see the blue sky, the clouds, the lake, and then it's just seeing this reflection off the lake is great. In a little bit here, I have a picture of their reflecting lake, which it just really, I don't know, it just makes things a little more magical. Now, as I pan to the right, you can see here's the picture of the same lake. Here, I intentionally did my best to kind of capture the red twig dogwoods at the bottom of the screen. So at this point, if anybody's joining late, I covered red twig dogwoods a little earlier where they are in front of evergreen shrubs. The point I'm trying to make here is they're very flexible. They can handle full sun. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use them to help enhance them and get them to stand out. If depending on the color of your siding at your home, if you have kind of a cream color, you have a yellow siding, and then it'll stand out. And if you have red brick siding, earlier we covered pictures of the yellow twig dogwood. So it's just really selecting the right plant is going to make it pop in that situation. Now here's coral bells. Again, I covered coral bells earlier. I caught a picture of with the green leaf. And here I was trying to mention a lot of different color coral bells. Now the purple leaf typically is a smaller size than some of the larger green leaf varieties. So great to try there. So I see Henry asking about where you can plant black-eyed Susans. Black-eyed Susans are great in full sun. So kind of in that middle to front border, they really do well. So that's kind of help you there with the black-eyed Susans. A tip to have dense plantings without a messy look. Wow, let me think about that one. It really depends on what you consider kind of a messy look. Like, so this is in regards to the question from Midnight Mystery. Do I have dense plantings without a messy look? A tip for that. And my thought is it really depends on what you consider a messy look. Like, are you strictly looking after the fall season into the winter? You don't want a lot of that clutter, or are you concerned with the clutter in the middle of the season? And it really, I think a lot of it is just how tidy. It's not so much about what you plant as to your style and how you manage it. So I know me personally, I love that native look where everything grows closely. And that can look a little messy because you get things that kind of grow over the border. You get things that are growing into each other. The benefit there is you don't have a lot of the weeds. So that's different from what you want. If you're looking for that messy look, I think you try to limit the number of varieties. You limit the number of plantings. You don't want 50 different things. You don't want them all cluttered in there. You want to go with more select ornamentals. So you want that large shrub, that large bush is kind of like that background. So there's that one item there. I think it's easier to kind of draw on the eye when you have few items. Yeah, kind of your one or two middle ground varieties or middle border varieties, and then one or two in the front. So hopefully that helps answer your question to kind of keep it so it's not messy. It's about managing the number of plantings that you have in there. Okay, so what do I have next here? So here's another picture of the coral bells. I covered there. Next, ferns. So this is a native fern, Christmas fern. Now, it was interesting. As I was walking around, I noticed there were several different varieties of ferns on display at Longwood. The Christmas fern is a native. There were some other Japanese varieties that I really did my best to stay away from. So the Christmas fern, you'll notice it's definitely grows lower to the ground, but you get some good foliage from it. So again, depending on your goals, what it is you're trying to accomplish, having something like the Christmas fern, and then also having ferns like a cinnamon fern, that's going to lose its leaves, but will still keep some of that dark brown or red texture in the winter. It's really great to use a lot of a variety of different ferns. There's a lot of natives to choose from. So it's great to see this one. Here's another shot of it, depending on your goals and the spot where you're putting it. Here's the Hourglass Lake I alluded to earlier. And this is, it's interesting. When I just looked at it, my eyes, for whatever reason, were kind of drawn up, I think, to the light blue sky and kind of the trees here. But if you look down, you really can see a beautiful, perfect reflection on this water. And I did take one other picture I'll show you in a minute, but the water's crystal clear, beautiful. Here, let me get to that now. And this, again, it's interesting in some ways, depending on where your eyes are drawn. You look at this picture, it almost looks like a throwaway picture of nothing. Kind of this plant here on this little island sticking out of the water. But if you take a minute, you see this reflection over here. You realize over on the left side, you can see the reflection of the trees and shrubs. To the bottom right side, crystal clear water. You can see down to the stones, see right through. And then the way the water has eroded this island here, yet the roots are hanging on, and the tree and life is thriving, is just, again, another magical picture at Longwood Gardens here. So that's Hourglass Lake. So I'm just as moving here to the next picture of Packer. I know this question from Henry Davis. How can I get Japanese barberry? Yeah, Japanese barberry, I rip it out. So I know that you definitely want to make sure you're wearing protection when you deal with Japanese barberry. It has the hooks and the thorns, and man, I'll tell you, if you're not wearing good gloves and you really grab it, again, the spines will go right through the gloves. But a lot of it, when I take out the shrubs, I really try to chop all that upper foliage off. So I literally take loppers, if you will, and just cut everything, get rid of that upper growth, and then that enables you to easily get to the roots. And they're typically, when you get to that point, you get rid of the spindly upper parts, then it's easy to get down to the roots, and it's typically not that bad to pull out. But if you do get the majority of the roots, from my experience, typically if you leave a little bit of the root, it's not the type of plant that's going to grow back. But definitely something that if you have the means, it's good to get rid of. And there's a lot of options that'll do better. Even things like I'm thinking of like a shrubby plant that'll like full sun. Something like St. John's wort, shrubby St. John's wort is native, great flowers, and it's going to do well. Or if you really like the purple color of the Japanese barberry, something like nine bark. Nine bark is a native shrub. It has the same leaf color, and it has a beautiful, beautiful pink flower that's going to come out of it. Super hardy. So in regards to the Japanese barberry, that's a plant you might want to consider. So I know Gretchen's asking a question here. Your goal is to bring native plants into your yard and replace non-natives. I'm not where to start. There's so much info. Yes, there is a lot of information out there. Do I have any tips or resources on how to start this process? So my wife mentioned that is the next video I should make. So the next video I'm going to make is kind of the 5 tips to get you started, and things to consider. Just off the top of my head, like, you really want to make sure that prior to putting in a bunch of plants, that you do have a good plan and that you're really fixing problems. I'm very big on fixing the problems first. And what I mean by that is things like drainage. I was just at a house earlier this week where they have problems where water is pooling in different areas, or water is coming from their downspout and it's washing away mulch. So I really don't want to just put down mulch again, because I know it's going to quickly wash away. So you want to make sure you're fixing problems. So if that's not the only problem. If there's a problem with like walking paths or accessing things, or if there's a problem with something that's unsightly in the background, make sure that there's a plan to cover that. But starting with a good plan. In terms of resources, the resource I'm recommending now is really Homegrown Park is a great resource in terms of being able to find natives, either Homegrown Park, or if you want to look on Mount Cuba's website, they have a listing of native plants as well. And then also on this site, I have a lot of videos about landscape design and about plants like sundrops that are out there. But I will be adding, my next video is going to be kind of that checklist for things to consider, top mistakes you might make, kind of with some pictures and examples that are out there. So hopefully that'll help you out, Gretchen. All right, so another question here for banking on the farm. What does native mean? Is it synonymous with local? And I do consider it, yes, synonymous. And I think it's a great question. And I think it depends on who you ask and who you talk to. I feel like, there can be different meanings or different thoughts with it. But yes, when I use the word native, I'm referring to local plants. Okay. So I'm going to get back to some of the pictures here, but please continue to ask questions. I realize I've probably missed some of the questions. And at the end here, I am going to take my time and kind of go back through the top here. So please continue to ask away. Do I think climate change will change what we consider native over the time? I absolutely think that is a question from Vanessa Downing. Real quick before I get back to the pictures. Do I think that climate change will change what we consider native over time? And I think in large part, it already has. That they're just recently over the past year, the different zones where you live have changed as they're starting to kind of migrate, and we're starting to see the warmer temperatures come in. So it's definitely, if you're planning for the long term, which again, anytime you do a landscape design, you want to think long term. You're not just thinking, what are you going to do over the next year or 2 years? You're thinking, what are the conditions going to be down the road? So considering those drought tolerant plants, and if there's some that are considered native or local to the area just south of you, chances are, as that climate change occurs more and more, then those are going to be definitely something you want to consider. Some of those plants that may be a little south of you, but will be adapting to your climate as climate change continues. Okay, so Pacra. So I love Pacra. From this picture, it does not look like much. It's kind of tricky to take in exactly what you're looking at because you have the combination of Pacra and then you have a lot of leaf litter here. However, so I'm going to zoom in a little. And as you kind of see me zoom in, you see more of these green leaves. Again, this is a great ground cover. Here's a third picture where I really zoom in. And here you can see these great green leaves. I didn't have time to get a picture of what these look like in the spring, but I do have a video out there. There was a video I made recently of 13 or so 13 plants and how they look in winter. And I have a picture of this Pacra from January, and I also have a picture of it in full spring bloom. What's great about Pacra is it can handle a lot of different conditions. So if you have, anywhere from part shade, full sun, it can also be used in rain gardens. So it can handle the wet feet, and it has beautiful yellow flowers that'll come up. The one drawback is it can be a little aggressive with all those seeds. It can be aggressive. What I say is one of the best plants for Southeast PA. Look, one of the best plants for Southeast, this is a question from John Willow. And here I'm just going to show you another picture as I answer this question. So one of the best plants for Southeast PA, it really depends on the size that you're looking for, the conditions it can handle. You're looking for wet feet, looking for dry. But off the top of my head, I mentioned it earlier, is the shrubby St. John's wort. That's one that I've really kind of fallen in love with recently, because I do need a kind of small, mid-sized, kind of 4-foot tall shrub, something for the middle border. And it has a very unique flower, and there's a lot of the flowers. So shrubby St. John's wort, I think, is one to consider. It absolutely does flower. If you Google shrubby St. John's wort, you'll see it's a yellow flower. It's super beautiful. I think in future sessions, if I didn't have this PowerPoint up, I would try to find a picture for you real quick, because I know I have some, but I think I'm gonna juggle too much here. So for now, I'll get back to the pictures, but please continue to ask questions. So this is a seating structure. Again, I think anywhere else, if you were not at Longwood Gardens, I think you would just see a bench. But this is a great spot to sit or to get shelter if it's raining. And then it's facing the wildflower meadow, which I'm going to show here in the next picture. And then you can also see in the background here to the left, this bridge. This bridge is actually overlooking the Hourglass Lake, which you can't see from here. But again, another great structure. You have the round arches here in the seating structure. You have the round arches. So again, if you're looking at any of this from a kind of landscape design perspective, or any design perspective, this is all just beautiful. The next picture here, I had trouble getting a good photograph of this, but viburnums are native. And here you can see the blackberries, which are so important. It's a great food source. There were birds that were eating these. Sure, if I were to take this picture, a month or two ago, the amount of berries would be double or triple. But viburnums is another great shrub. If you're looking kind of for that foundational planting, do be careful. Some of the there's a lot of different varieties. Some of them can get larger there, but viburnum's great. Now I was a little enamored with this path, so I'm not going to talk too much about this, but I do want to say In this area, there just so happens you can tell that there's a little bit of a drainage, there's a little bit of a water issue, and it's just their solution. I thought was very interesting. How do you handle scenarios like that? And what they did is these stones here on the left, and then there's stones on the right. You can see they used larger stones, and then in between them, there's kind of compacted stones or dirt. So they were able to raise up this path by anywhere from, I don't know, 8 to 12 inches, which I think is enough to make this stay dry when there's a drainage issues. So here's just another picture kind of from the side. Again, depending on your situation and if you have, drainage issues, I thought this was great solution here without putting in like hardscaping or something. So I wanted to share that. All right, now here's pictures of the meadow. Of course, this picture taken here in early February. There was not a lot taking place, and I did not walk across the meadow or try to walk to the other side. But it was such a beautiful day, the blue sky. I wanted to share a couple pictures of the meadow. And then this is opposite of the meadow. They left some of the winter debris here, which I thought, I shouldn't call it winter debris, but some of the plant remains, which I think is so important for the insects. And again, I think it draws your eye. You can see there's a lot of contrasting shapes, sizes, and colors in there. And I thought it was really, really beautiful. Now, as I go across that path, you're led to this bridge, which another just architectural structure, again, only at Longwood Gardens. Very beautiful with a combination of kind of this rusted metal and then the stainless steel. So it's all very safe, very accessible. And I alluded to the drainage issue. So you can see they've done different solutions. And this is something that a homeowner can do, of putting these different collection boxes to collect the water and then using the black corrugated pipe to drain it away to a safe area. All right. And then as I went across the bridge to the other side, I couldn't help but notice my eye was drawn to this red bud. Now, this picture is not medicinal. I'm sorry, my attention was just called to the question that was just asked by Banking on the Farm. Thoughts on medicinal plants and herbalism? Have you explored that? So I can tell you, I went to a field day at Rodale. I don't know if you're familiar with Rodale, but Rodale is the longest running organic farm in the US. And it just so happens to be located right here in the great state of Pennsylvania. So if you are interested in that, when I was at Rodale, they did have a great section full of medicinal plants and medicinal different growings there that were for medicinal purposes as like a trial garden. Now I can tell you, I personally have not explored it. It's one of those things that it just scares me a little bit, because when you're talking about the dosage or getting the right amounts or applying too much of a medicinal plant, you can kind of get in trouble there. So just a word of caution, if you are going to do it, there are a lot of great books and a lot of great resources out there. And I believe in all of it. And I think there's a great benefit to it, but not my area of expertise. But if you do live anywhere on the East Coast, you might want to consider checking out the Rodale farm and their medicinal growing. All right. So Eastern redbud here. Again, I don't think this is the best picture. So I did want to get a kind of close up. I think it's always nice to get a close up. So redbuds, I know they're beautiful. You see a lot of them growing. They can be a little messy because you get to deal with these droppings. They kind of look like pea pods, if you will. So they'll be dropping. But again, it's great because not only do you get that beautiful flower in the spring, it is native or local, however you want to say it. And you do get this extra winter interest of something that catches your eye more so than just the structure of the tree. Now, ground cover, I know this probably looks like a silly picture, but this is leading up to a picture of, what is this, long stem, I'm not saying it right, of the, I can't think of it. This is the long, what is this? It's grown in North Carolina, the long pine mulch, long stem pine mulch, if you will. So this has kind of grown in popularity over the years as an alternative. So if you're looking for something that's considered environmentally sustainable, then this is grown in North Carolina and it's shipped up. I'll kind of show, here's another picture of it kind of close up. So I did want to, I thought this picture was nice because, let me actually back up here, because it does have a reddish color. It is different, if you will. I'm going to back up again. So it is, if you're looking at different textures throughout the garden, throughout the area, or if you wanted to try something in a certain area, try this long stem pine leaf mulch. I personally don't love it. And the reason I don't love it is when I do my native plantings, I'm putting in a lot of plugs. So the plugs are tiny. And this mulch, when you first put it down, here, if I back up, you can see it's all laying down on the ground, nice and flat, and it looks nice and clean. However, when you first put it down, it's very poofy, and it kind of puffs up. So if you're putting it around native plants, small plugs, and it poofs up, it can be difficult to work with. So for that reason, I don't like it. Now, for an area like this, where if you're doing a large area or you're doing it around larger shrubs, it might not be as cumbersome. But I just wanted to share my thoughts on it there. Okay, next, wood spurge. I love wood spurge. I don't know why I love it. It doesn't really have a showy flower. So that was a far away picture. As I go closer, I think the reason I love it is that it has such dark green foliage in the winter. So this is a true evergreen, a true native. So if you need a spot that's in a shade, part shade or full shade, definitely consider wood spurge. And I'm going to go one more picture. So this picture, this is some of the healthiest, happiest wood spurge I've seen. I just feel like so much of what I see, I feel like does not reach this full height. So I don't know if this is a different variety or it's just that it's happy. If you do decide to grow a wood spurge, make sure you put in several different plantings of it, because again, it does take time to establish. This is not something that's going to fill in quickly and crowd out the weeds. It grows slower. But if I just back up again, so here's, I think, the good shot that when it does fill in, again, it really does, even with leaves surrounding it or in the area, it really does stand out, that dark green color in the winter. I didn't want to completely lose track. I didn't take a picture of every tree there or the structure of every tree that was there, but I did want to at least get a couple. I know I covered one earlier, one of the white oaks earlier. Here's a picture of a sugar maple, which I think looks beautiful. All right, this next area. Now, it's a large area. For those of you who have been to Longwood Gardens before, this is across from the conservatory, and there's a path that kind of goes over a bridge and goes to the cafe. So this is one of the pictures. I think this is a combination of more of the Virginia sweet spire that's going to show in here. But as I work my way, as I back up a little bit here, and let me see. Where do I go over here? Hold on. Can I zoom in? Yeah, okay. So here I'm zooming in. So as I do this and you look to the left, this is a combination I want to kind of focus on here. Now, the white plants, I'll tell you right now, these are not native. This is a fountain grass. However, I think there are different varieties of grass that are native that you could use that would give you a very similar look here. But when you look at the contrast and the combination of all these, so let me go to the next picture. Oh, now that I zoomed in, now I feel like it's going to give me trouble. Let me try this. Okay, so here's the path I'm talking about. So that white area is kind of behind me. I took a couple steps forward, and I just want to show this from a lot of different angles so you can kind of see the different shrubs there. I think these here, especially on the left, are a sweet pepper bush. Oh, and here I back up. So here you can really see that grass. And I think with this, more than anything, from a design perspective, this is a testament to the growing things in mass. Now, again, this is Longwood Gardens, a lot of open space. Not everybody has this much space that they're able to put in different plantings. But it's definitely something to keep in mind that when you do large plantings like this and you combine different shrubs, and if I kind of just, again, you see what's in the background, it really makes it pop. And again, I don't want to advocate for lawns that are over here to the right, but the combination of the green lawn, the white grass, the darker color shrubs in the background, it really, really does look great. What plant, and I'm seeing a question here from Henry Davis, what plant would you recommend as a plant that needs little water and light? So are you saying a low light, or no, sorry, you're looking for a full shade plant? If you're looking for full shade, let me just think here. Oh no. I'm sorry, bear with me 1 second. I don't know where I was. Where was I? No. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. I got a little mixed up. So that like little light. So some of the shade plant you might want to look into. So something that's interesting is goat's beard off the top of my head. That's one it's not used in a lot of different places. Goat's beard, the wood spurge, So if you want something that's low to the ground, wood spurge, and that's the picture. I think I can just go to this guy right here. All this dark green, this wood spurge, it can definitely handle full shade. So again, it just depends. If you want something taller, you could consider something like goat's beard, ferns. There's a lot of different ferns that like shade as well. Now ferns, I should say, ferns like a little more moist. So if you want something that's a dry area, I might go the route of the wood spurge. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so from a design perspective, I covered this. Again, super beautiful spot. And then I just took a step back. Now the area I just covered is to the right of this. So as you look over, so this is the last picture that I have here. So if I zoom in, again, I it's interesting ending on intentional. It's just kind of the path that I took and where I ended. But what I think is great about this is really this epitomizes what you want to achieve, in my opinion, in the winter, where you have different textures and different colors. You have dark green, you have more of a lime green. This here, even though this isn't growing, you have more like a dark brown. You have the white at the bottom. I think this really catches your eye, really looks beautiful. And I can tell you, instead of using fountain grass, since this is full sun, I think you could easily put in pink moly grass. So pink moly grass is a grass that likes full sun. It has beautiful pink foliage in the fall. It is a warm season grass, so it's not going to start growing until after the spring. It'll grow in the summer, and then in the fall it turns to a white color as well. So I think it really would stand out in this area as well. So at this point, those are all the pictures that I have here. So again, I really do want to thank everybody for joining. So I'm going to go up to the top here, and I just wanted to make sure I answered everybody's question. Midnight Mystery, thank you for the congratulations on the first live stream. Hopefully this is entertaining. Hopefully everybody finds value in this. If so, I'm going to try to do more of these in the future. This was kind of my first attempt to see how it goes. So your question, when do you do the spring cutback? So what's hard about questions like this is I think if you were to put this question on Facebook, I think you'd get 20 different answers. And I think the reason you get 20 different answers, because I spent a lot of time looking at the different questions and the different answers. And I think it's because there's different goals that everybody has, and everybody's answering based on their goals, their values, and their budget. So what I want to encourage everybody here is, I know that I am not, the same answer does not apply to everybody, and I don't want to make anybody feel bad. I don't want anybody to think they're doing the wrong thing. So I think it's important, Midnight Mystery, of understanding what is it you want to accomplish. So I'm going to give you some examples here. So if your goal is to have like a pure 100% native garden, all natural, then I think the answer is very simple. You wouldn't cut anything back, and you would just let it go. Now, if you're saying, look, I want native, but realistically, I live in an HOA or a development with it in HOA, they have certain guidelines, they have strict guidelines that minimally I need to do this, then I think you would you may cut back some things in the fall. Again, I think it's very important to leave soft landing spaces for the buggies. So it's important to leave leaves on the ground. It's important to have, to have debris in certain areas, whether it's cut sticks or different spots for the different insects to have safety, to have protection, to raise their young, to do all those things that are important. But there's different ways to do that. So again, if you're on one end of the spectrum and you're just going to let it go, you would just let those sticks kind of lay where they lie. On the other hand, if you have the HOA, you might make neat piles of them and kind of put them somewhere where they're not seen. So I think it's really understanding your goals and your different restrictions and your budget, and then accordingly putting the different again, you might start to cut back in the fall, and then the rule of thumb in the spring is as temperatures start to reach that 50, 55 degrees, then they feel like a lot of the bugs have emerged, have come out of the winter hibernation. And at that point, it's going to be safe to start kind of cutting things back. So hopefully, I know that was a little long-winded, but I think it's very important and to be very realistic of understanding everybody's goals and what you're trying to accomplish. And that should drive the decisions that you make, not kind of what everybody else is doing or what works for other people, because then you're going to kind of make decisions. You're not going to be happy with your own garden, and you're not going to meet your goals. So I think that's important. So you weren't not seeing the screen. We fixed that. That's that you can see it. The African daisy, John, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to have to look up African daisy. I'm not familiar with that one. So I'll be sure to take a look at that one. Thank you for sharing it. And Gretchen, thank you for sharing where you're located. Your favorite is a purple coneflower, which I love. I love the purple coneflower. Unfortunately, mine got a fungus. It got the Astor's yellow this year. So I unfortunately had to take all my purple coneflower out, which made me super sad because purple coneflower is such a great winter contributor because you have all those seeds that attract all the birds, which would be in my yard at this point. And again, I still have a lot of birds because there's so many different seeds for them to select. So there are a lot of birds kind of coming and visiting, but I miss my purple coneflowers. I want to see if I can kind of get them back this year. But thank you so much for sharing that. Definitely a beautiful selection. The purple coneflower John likes as well, and it can bloom again. Whether it's there's a couple different families there. You have the what is it? The Echinacea and Rudbeckia is the black-eyed Susan. That again, a lot of those were at one point, I believe, in the same plant family. All great. You can't go wrong with any of them. And then Vanessa's saying her favorites in the winter are the hellebores and the winterberries. And yes, I don't know if everybody had a chance to see it, but I recently did a design video which was centered around the winterberry and combining that with the pink moly grass, which blooms in the fall when the red berries are on the winterberry, and also adding in the low growing ground cover, one of the Astor varieties, which has a white flower. So it was really trying to make that centerpiece of all three of those kind of in their prime at the same time, but then also continuing on into the winter because you have the pink moly grass then turns white and it still contrasts with the winterberry. So again, all these are great selections. Yeah, the hellebores, all these are great. Let me see here. I'm trying to make sure I answered all the questions. Awesome, thank you. The climate change, I answered for Vanessa. The best plants for PA, I kind of mentioned, I think the shrubby St. John's wort, the medicinal, I kind of shared my thoughts there. Would you recommend needs a little water? The light just looked up beautiful. Does it help to plant? Oh, here's a question I did not answer from Edward Morris. Edward, thank you for joining. Does it help to plant moisture-loving plants below grade button bush? I'm not familiar with the below grade, and my immediately thought is no, because by planting below grade, then you're going to be having either soil or compost or mulch. you're going to be piling that up against higher up the shrub, which is typically not a good practice. So I know buttonbush. I do love buttonbush. That's another one. I kind of a slow grower. When you use it, you just have to. It can take just a little bit of time. I found. Now other people say it kind of grows fast, but I do love the flower of the buttonbush. I think I say it's a slow grower because I planted one here at my house, and I feel like it's hanging in there. It is in the part shade. It is in a spot where it's wet, but it's just been a little slow to kind of take off. So I would be careful with planting below grade. If anything, when I plant, I actually plant intentionally higher. Now, again, as owner of Soil Shepherds Regenerative Landscaping, I am very, very big into the soil health. Typically, when I go to a customer's house, the soil conditions are not that good, and that leads to a variety of problems. First and foremost, weeds exist for a reason, and that is to improve the soil and improve the conditions to eventually improve things to the point where you have a forest growing, through plant succession. So the more problems there are of the soil, the more weeds you're going to have, the more maintenance you're going to have, the more watering you're going to need to do because the water doesn't have the proper structure to hold all that moisture. There's not enough organic matter in the soil. So I know this is kind of a long-winded answer, but my point is when I plant, I'm typically planting things a little higher because I am putting on a thick layer of organic compost, and then I'm doing a very light layer of mulch on top of that, because it's so important for that to work into the soil. And I do my best to follow practices, no-till practices, I should say, no-till practices that are not damaging soil structure and releasing that carbon, which again is also important to the soil health. So I feel like if I do another live stream, I should focus just on soil health, because I feel like so many of the different customers I have and people I talk to, the problems go back to the soil health. And there's some of the problems with drainage are actually solved with healthy soil. That when you have very compacted soil and rainwater hits that, it comes down, it does not soak into the ground. It just hits it and it rushes off quickly, which causes drainage issues. Now, for every 1% increase in soil organic matter you have over the course of an acre, that increases the soil's ability to hold an extra 20,000 gallons of water. So I know at my home, or the average home, is anywhere from 2.5 to 3% organic matter. I've got mine up to 5%. I don't have those drainage issues. I have a lot fewer weeds. So it's yeah, Gretchen, I see you're saying a video on soil health. I've touched on it in some of the videos, but I've not just focused on it in one video. So I definitely can put that on the list. That's the soil health. It's one of those, I think it goes back to Gretchen. I think you actually asked the question of for somebody who's starting off going down this path of doing a native garden, addressing the soil health is one of those areas that I consider a problem, because of all these things. That it takes a little more work up front to put down the compost. However, in the long run, you're going to save yourself more time because it's going to start to fix the soil. And it's not something that's fixed overnight, because it does take time for it to work down into the soil. And the best way to do that is to let nature do it. So I'll definitely put that on the list here. And let me see, I see some other questions coming in. Thank you guys so much for asking the questions. I think it's better to answer your questions than just to spew out different facts and different things. Does it help the plant? So I answered that one. So Edward also asked that you cannot find prairie willow ideas. So it's interesting. I'm not familiar with that variety of willow that you're mentioning. Let me just look here. Salix, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Discolor? I don't know if you're familiar with that one. Hold on, let me just see if I can look real quick. Salix is now again, you're in Tennessee, so you're definitely a little west of me. So the variety of pussy willow that I use is Salix discolor, Discolor. So I'm not sure if that's native in your area, but I would take a look at that. That, for others, if you're not familiar with the pussy willow plant, again, it's one of those first bloomers. It has the fuzzy, I don't even know how to say it, the fuzz kind of covering the seed and the flower, because it does bloom in the early spring when temperatures are still cold, that it's a good food source for things like bumblebees. I know like it, and because bumblebees are able to come out at colder temperatures and they're able to kind of stay warm. So check out Salix. And am I able to? Hold on. Just again, this is my first time doing this. Wait, where's your question? Oh, here. Wait, if I click on this, report, remove. Okay. I thought maybe there was just a way for me to reply just so I could type it in. I guess. I don't know. I'm just experimenting here. The color as okay. Yeah, that way I kind of put it in there. And then kind of find the priority. So hopefully that helps you there. Livestream a mason jar soil. Yes, the soil. I want to do videos. What's interesting now that I'm just kind of thinking about this. One of the soil tests or one of the videos I wanted to do on soil was a temperature test. And I can tell you, I collected the data, and then I just never got around to putting the video out there. And I'll just talk about it for just a minute here, because I have just a couple minutes here. Is that I took temperature of black dyed mulch, I took temperature of non-dyed mulch, both on top and below, and then I also took the temperature of different shrubs, and then I took the temperature of the ground of just bare soil, and it's really amazing that, again, the whole concept of covering the ground is so important. And when you go around with a temperature gun, which, because my kids play with it, I just so happen to have right here, that you just point this and it kind of tells you the temperature. But it is interesting that covering the best way to lower the temperature of the soil. And again, it's all about all the microbes that are living in the soil. Again, the ideal temperature range for them is in like, I think like the 80s. And it's very easy to get there when the ground is covered with living vegetation. Now, again, covering with a mulch is definitely still effective. And what was interesting in my testing, I think the reason I probably didn't make the video because I wanted to test this a little bit more and just didn't have time, but it was interesting that the black dyed mulch was cooler than the non-dyed mulch. And I think that was surprising. I thought that by putting black dye in, especially the black dye that's typically used is carbon black. And carbon black is from oil. It's taken from heating oil to super high temperatures. It takes any of the moisture out. You're left with this black flaky powder, which is then mixed with shredded wood, typically pellets, and that's how black dyed mulch is made. So I figured by having black, which attracts the color of the sun, that would have a higher temperature than non-dyed mulch. But I think the difference is the non-dyed mulch is more alive, that there's more living organisms in there actually breaking down that mulch into smaller and smaller pieces, and which eventually works it into the soil. And that's how you increase organic matter in your soil, because those processes generate heat. That was actually a little higher, at least on the surface. Now, when you move the mulch, both of them, and look underneath, the temperature was significantly lower. So it was an interesting finding that I definitely wanted to share in a video. I just haven't gotten there. So again, different thoughts and different perspectives on soil health there. So I like sharing that. Edward Morris, which requires less water. Yes, definitely the less water. Again, any effort you do to improve the soil, whether it's applying like a leaf mold, applying a quality compost, top dressing with mulch, any of those efforts are going to go a long way. If you want a good baseline to know where you're currently at with soil organic matter, you can always do a soil test, which see your local university extension. For example, closest to me is University of Delaware Extension, and then a Plan B option is Penn State Extension. They're just a little farther away, so I'd have to mail it. And then again, you don't need as much water for your plants. So, all right. Well, look, at this point, I know I've talked for an hour. I think this was great. In my book, I think this was very successful. If you're interested, you'd like to attend these in the future, please put in the chat, let me know what you think. I see there's a lot of thumbs up. I appreciate that. Or if you would like, if there's a topic that you'd like to talk, I don't know if I just kind of continue doing Q&As. I don't know if I kind of, Mount Cube is near me. There's other options like that. So again, make sure you're subscribed, and I will put an update to the next time I'm going to do a live chat. And I thank you all for joining. I will put this chat, again, if you want to reference any of the pictures, this will be available on my website as well. But thank you for joining. And I think we should all get outside, because I think it's going to be a decent day. And I think we have some bad weather coming the next couple of days. So get outside and enjoy it. And I will see you soon. Thank you.